Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we hear from Heather Marini, the quarterbacks coach at Brown University, as she shares about beginning her coaching career in Australia, taking opportunities as they present themselves, and becoming the first female position coach in Division I. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Marini.
Coach Marini, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time as we're getting geared up and ready for another great season. I want to go ahead and get this thing jumping. I'm super excited. You've been a trailblazer in the profession. We're really diving into your story. But always, let's start the podcast off with when did you decide that you want to be in this great profession of coaching football?
For me, it was 2017. I'd actually been coaching for a really long time in Australia. I'd had about 10 years under my belt. And for me, it was a great hobby. All club sports in Australia and all coaches and volunteers and work really hard. But I actually came over to the NFL Women's Careers in Football Forum, and I saw 220 women from 20 different countries who all love the game, are passionate about the game. And I was like, you know what, this could be for me. There's a role here for me. There's a place in football for me, and I wanted to be a part of it.
So you were already coaching at that point in time in Australia at Monash University for the club team. What's the popularity of American football in Australia?
I like to call it a boutique sport. There's a couple of thousand players through open men's, under 19s, and women playing in Australia right now. And there's actually 84 different countries that play American football, right. And there's really passionate international players from all over. So I was really lucky to be a part of it and for football to come along right at the right time in my life.
Well, I typically try to hit the podcast chronologically and kind of travel through your story, but I'm going to jump around real quick here. So I'm going to kind of flash to your current job here, but I want you to reflect on those 10 years. What do you see as a kind of the main difference in terms of, I'm in Texas right now. Grew up in Texas where like football is everything. I mean, the city's shut down on Friday nights for high school football, and obviously SEC country, the Ivy League football is absolutely fantastic. Is there that kind of love out there in Australia? Do you find some pockets of people that just love the game like that?
Yeah, you definitely do. For me, I didn't get to see football for the first time, other than, maybe remember the Titans, until I was 18 years old. And, I went out to watch my boyfriend, who's now my husband, play. And it was just, like a Pee-wee football game. There was no stands. It was a roped off field.
Yeah.
The refs certainly don't have mics, so you have no idea what's going on. And I didn't know the rules, that's for sure. But the people that show up, after work, day in, day out to train and work hard at their craft and get better at their skills, is something that I wanted to be a part of and be around a great group of people. And I think Australians just have a love for sports, Australian football and rugby and tennis. And, we'll show up and watch curling on a Friday night if that's what's on. So I think, just that infectious nature of competing and being involved in sports is something that I definitely grew up with, and you definitely see in the football community in Australia.
Absolutely. And so in Monash, you were the head coach for the Gridiron Club. You just briefly, I know we brought it up a couple times, but what was that experience like? Just implementing a football program, being responsible for the WNL columns, and just everything that entails being a head coach.
Yeah, it was a great experience. For me, it was a gradual step, each step of the way. I started as an athletic trainer and became a strength and conditioning coach, and then, an offensive assistant. And like most volunteers in Australia, you step up when you're called upon. And for me, it was, one day the offensive line coach, he's got to pick his kids up and you've got to step in and do that, just like a lot of high school coaches around the country here do. And other days it'd be the running backs. And, then, I had the opportunity to actually come over to the States and do a strength and conditioning internship at Oregon State.
Oh, wow.
And what I really learned was I wanted to be on the field. I didn't want to be in the gym.
Yeah.
So when I went back to Australia, I got more and more heavily involved. And my husband and I were actually coaching together. And I got the opportunity to step up and be the head coach of the under-19 program. So I had first and second year college players all the way down to 8th grade on the same team. And you certainly are challenged. You've got players that, don't even know what the line of scrimmage is. Yeah. And you have to really use your words and challenge yourself as a coach. I was majoring in coaching in college, and I was pulling every tool out of my tool belt that I could to make sure that these guys are ready to play. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot from supportive mentors and coaches around me who had dedicated their lives to coaching football after work. And it was a great experience. And I got to implement the first ever club training camp in Australia for the under-19 program. And
wow.
We had a wonderful time having a week of being all immersed in football and increasing, the players' football IQ. And I always said I just didn't want to be their last football coach.
Yeah.
I wanted them to have enough knowledge to go and play for someone else who maybe didn't have the time or the words to be able to explain it the way that I could.
Yeah, and that kind of is a great segue to my question, because you talked about tools in your tool belt and being able to pour that knowledge into people, and you wanted them to be well equipped. I made a huge assumption prior to the podcast. You had played up into the point, so you could probably draw on some past experience, but you had never really played at that point in time. So how were you bouncing around from O-line to running backs to receivers, and just being so versatile? What were you doing to sharpening your tools to make sure that you were well equipped to teach them?
Yeah, I coached for 10 years before I ever got the opportunity to play women's football in Australia. Is newer than the women's football in the US. And for me, it was, I learned from as many different people as possible. Like I said, I was majoring in coaching in college, and, I was stealing things from the basketball coach that I could take in and make my running backs have, better agility. I was stealing things from rugby coaches about, how to tackle, how to be physical, and how to have that mentality to attack the game. And, for me, it was, trying to, coming from a strength and conditioning, athletic training background was, be technical, get really good at the technical aspects of the game. And for me, the X's and O's, I had to learn on the fly and come a little later, but I could be an expert in how the human body moves and how to get that to happen on the football field.
That's awesome. It's kind of like just drawing from all your experiences, even in other spots, and using the resources around you just to develop as a coach. That's fantastic. Now, in 2018, and I guess at this point in time, you're kind of making trips back and forth from Australia to a certain extent. You did the deal at Oregon State. You're part of these NFL women's careers and football forums and here in the States as well. So you get this opportunity to come over and actually work with the NFL through their scout program with the Jets. What attracted you to that opportunity? And obviously, this was football a little bit differently than probably you've seen it at this point in time, because now you're going to go scout and look at prospects from across the country that can fill an NFL roster. Talk to us a little bit about that experience and why you pursued it.
Yeah, it was awesome for me. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, football is football once you cross the white line. But what makes it really different in the US is what happens behind the scenes. And to have that experience with the Jets was awesome. Scouting is a different language to coaching, and like learning in Australia and having to have the words to explain football to someone who's never seen it before. Having the words to be able to evaluate players was something I definitely took out of the Jets. But also, if the end goal is to have your players play at the highest level that they're capable of, being able to see how an NFL team functions, what the standards are, and what coaches are asking of players at that level, that was an incredible insight for me. I'd had a player who I'd got the opportunity to coach in Australia who'd gone to the league. And to me, being able to, see what it was on a daily basis that I was trying to prepare players for was exceptional experience, and Coach Bowles was a big part of making that experience awesome, and the whole scouting department at the Jets really poured into us and gave us a lot of opportunities to get dirty and to do all the work so that we got the most out of the opportunity.
Absolutely. And, you might have mentioned it already, but I'm going to ask the question anyways. What was the most eye-opening experience of that scouting opportunity, especially not really ever seeing that side of football, even from like a recruiting standpoint? What was just the biggest not necessarily takeaway, but you were like, wow, that's crazy. That type of moment there.
I mean, for me, it was the first time anyone had ever sent me a check to watch film, so that was pretty cool. But it was the business of football. Football has a business side of it. A lot of people don't talk about it a lot. It's often unpleasant. When you're coaching high school, when you're coaching club football, players are there for the love of the game, right? Who you play with and who you play for, and they're paying to play, and they just want to be there more than anything else in the world. And that's a very different thing to when football is your 9 to 5. And it's your job to be good, and it's your job to get it done. And that's very different from a culture where, sport is a hobby. And I think, my first job interview here in the US, the coach said to me, "What do you do for fun?" I was like, "I coach football." And, getting into football as a career, you have to find a new hobby. You have to find ways to refresh and get away from the sport. And, but to me, that was the most eye-opening part of the Jets. A lot of players, lose their job on one day at the end of training camp, and seeing how that affects them and their experiences and their families. That was a really, that was a culture shock, but it was also, hey, what you do is important and people rely on me.
Right. Yeah, that's the unfortunate side of the sport, but I mean it's just a side of it. Like you said, it is a business. Now, typically we do these podcasts, and I'm able to kind of look at the bio, and we talk about the season, and it's like I'm pretty sure you went to recruit, and you went and did this because I kind of know what a season looks like. But you're back and forth from Australia, so between this experience at you wrapping up your time at Monash to starting with the Jets, and we're about to hop into the into Brown. What was that looking like for you, kind of in between these deals? Are you going back and forth, flying back and forth from Australia? Like, what exactly are you doing?
Yeah, my husband and I had the opportunity to move to the US in middle of 2017, so it was good to have home base. Yeah. I kind of, I viewed it as like my DIY internship. I couldn't get on a staff, but I could go and visit as many practices as I could. I could go to clinics. I could go to the AFCA Convention. I could, soak as much in as I possibly could. And, part of being an international coach is work permits and paperwork and getting all that stuff sorted. But my husband, he stepped away from football to concentrate on his postdoctoral fellowship in San Francisco. And for me, that was home base. And I was able to go and get experiences like working at the Jets. I was able to go and visit coaches at Stanford and UC Davis and Cal Berkeley and kind of soak in what it was that I was trying to get towards, and make a lot of connections and meet a lot of coaches, including Coach Perry at Brown.
Yeah. So, obviously kind of transition to the trailblazing part. There's not many women in this profession at the moment. It's just more directly on the actual on the field coaching side of it. It's growing. I'm excited about it. I've made some great friendships and partnerships kind of here in the last year or so to help us to move in the direction to be able to embrace the popularity amongst women wanting to break into the profession. What would you say as you kind of were going and visiting some of these places where, once again, you're not traditionally the coaches coming and knocking on the door? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I think I was incredibly lucky and very grateful that I had a lot of coaches open their doors to me. Yeah, I think part of it is probably curiosity, and part of it is just a willingness to help young coaches. And I was very grateful to have those experiences. And the hardest part is obviously, breaking in and getting the first job. But, to have coaches who were willing to let me watch film with them and sit in on their meetings and be able to do that regularly. The coaches at Cal Berkeley at the time were unbelievably good about me. You know, I basically was there every day of spring ball. I said, I'm not leaving until you lock me out of the building.
That's awesome.
And so to have, you know, I know not everybody has that experience, but I was very lucky with the coaches that I reached out to, opening their doors to me and willing to share their knowledge and answer questions and, you know, really just, you know, open up their playbooks to me basically so that I could see where I was lacking. And, you know, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
So trying to absorb as much as you can just by osmosis, just being around. And, you know, that really helped me as a foundation.
Absolutely. And you said something that's, that I've say literally on every last podcast. I typically always ask, you know, what made you get interested in coaching? And then my question shortly after that is, you know, kicking down the door to get that first opportunity. And obviously you had the experience there in Australia, but now you're in the States now, and you know, you're trying to find an opportunity. What was that experience like? Kind of finally getting through that door at Brown. You know, just walk us through what happened and how you ended up being on that staff as a quality control assistant.
Yeah, so through the NFL Women's Careers in Football Forum, Coach Perry had been a mentor in the program, and he actually wasn't my mentor. Coach David Shaw was my mentor, and but I had stayed in contact. I think, you know, that was the most important thing. And, you know, he'd had job openings come and go, and I hadn't been a great fit for them. And then he got the job at Brown, and, you know, he said my persistence paid off, right? Staying in touch and building that relationship. You know, he brought me in for an interview, and I got the job. So, you know, sometimes it's got to be timing. It was incredibly frustrating, especially, you know, I just missed coaching a team. That was the hardest part, right? You know, when you go from being a head coach and having those relationships with your players and being in the game all the time, to have that break really just, you know, fed my enthusiasm and my, you know, my desire to get back in. And I think that paid off in the end.
And now, a quick word from StatsBomb. Transform your analysis with StatsBomb at AFCA booth 864. Our intuitive platform gives you an edge by saving you hours of analysis time between games, uncovering new insights, and speeding up transfer portal assessments. It harnesses the power of our aligned tracking and event data, delivering details at 10 times the granularity of legacy suppliers. This wealth of data includes in-depth physical metrics, groundbreaking visualizations, and comes with support from our experts to ensure you can confidently make the best decisions for your team. Want to know more? See our solutions for yourself at AFCA booth 864, and let's change the game together. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, so now you're sitting, you know, this is kind of a twofold question. You've been a head coach, you've kind of ran all facets of the program. Now as a quality control, you're a little bit more like not behind the scenes, because I know quality controls, you know, have huge responsibilities, but you know, it is a little bit more in the background. You're dealing with film, you're dealing with scout cards and scout team and data and analytics and all the kind of stuff that's going to help, you know, the 10 you know, your 10 not full-time guys, but your 10 on the field guys go out and be prepared. What was that experience like for you? For like I said, from two different views. Number one, Australia to being in U.S. into this major Ivy League college football look of it, and then number two, just from a, you know, looking at football from a whole different way now. All of a sudden, different offense, different defense, you know, different than the way you were calling things there where you were.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it was all the behind the scenes stuff, and I think that's, you know, one of the hardest things, especially for women who are breaking into this profession, is they don't have a traditional pathway, and so, you know, things that might be assumed knowledge you may have missed, but you may be more advanced in other ways. So for me, you know, I got to coach on the field, I got to, you know, develop the technical side of football, but the data and analytics side was something I'd never been exposed to. So it was really great for me to kind of fill a gap in my experiences by being a quality control coach, and, you know, start to really look at defenses in a whole different way and have developed a better understanding, a more nuanced understanding of that from an analytics perspective. Obviously, I miss coaching players, but, you know, being able to be in the quarterback room and learn from Coach Perry and learn from Coach Smith, who was our quarterback coach at the time, was awesome for me. And, you know, really just, you know, kind of dipping my foot in the pool rather than getting thrown in the deep end. Once you cross that international date line, there's a lot of things that you don't know that you don't know. Yeah. So being able to, you know, get right into it and have some responsibility, but also to be able to continue to learn was really important.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think one of the cool things is, you know, just sitting on the opposite side, as a man in the profession, I always say this on a lot of the podcasts was to talk about my college experience where I got so immersed in our offense and I thought I was the football guru coming out of college, and I get my first job and I'm like, wait, what's this? What are you calling this route? And you just realize you don't know so much, regardless of, kind of where you are when you kind of make your entry into that level, when you start looking at things from analytics, behind the scenes, input and film, all the kind of stuff that goes into it. So it's just, kind of cool that you can mention that and say that. And, I've definitely felt that same experience. Now, obviously in 2020 is a chaotic year for the whole globe with the pandemic going on. And, we had some conversations about this on the other podcast. The Ivy League didn't play in the in that fall, but you have a literally a monumental opportunity to be the first Division I, full-time position coach. And like I said, it's kind of in a chaotic time, unfortunately. But just talk about how that opportunity came about, what it meant to you, and I have some follow-ups for sure on that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was the next step in my career progression. It wasn't as monumental as a lot of people around the world kind of made it, but it was to me it was partly celebrating a personal success, but also partly knowing that by me getting a job, there was a lot of responsibility because people were looking at, hey, can this really, is this a realistic expectation to have women who, maybe haven't played at the college level to come in and be a coach? And, it was awesome experience having to have your first meeting on Zoom, isn't ideal. But we got really good at it. And, having a good relationship with the players already and having been in the building made for a really smooth, transition. And, we had a lot of fun with it. It was, while it wasn't an ideal season, again, it was just, it was a great experience. And for me to be able to spend a whole year building relationships with players, learning the playbooks the way that a quarterback coach needs to learn the playbook, developing more tools in the tool belt about how to teach and how to talk about plays and how to present information, was again, just like a slow, gradual building block rather than getting pushed in feet first. So it actually, if you look at, our quarterback's development during that time, it was a great opportunity for them to improve their football IQ. They got to look at the game in all these different ways where when you're preparing for an opponent week to week, you don't necessarily get that experience. And as coaches, it was awesome because we were able to share with them information that normally we don't have time. We're so limited in what we can deliver to them, and we're giving them the Cliff Notes version. And all of a sudden we get to talk about the game itself and how, the history of the game and the history of our offense and why we do the things that we do. And I think that really benefited them and me in the long run.
Absolutely. Now, when you start drawing those experiences that you had in the past, obviously, having a decade long of experience in Australia, I'm sure you draw on that, and then having this brief opportunity with the Jets to go and scout. Now you're asked to recruit. Now you're asked to go get on a plane, fly across the country. Awesome. You get to wear that shirt and walk into school. Holds a ton of weight to be recruited and be looked at by an Ivy League school. I know it was when I was in high school. I know it has to still be that way. And then you obviously offer this other unique dynamic. I'm your quarterback coach. I'm one of the only ones doing it, as a woman in the profession. How unique is that opportunity to go, walk across the halls in these schools all across the country and just be Ivy, be like I said, this trailblazer that you're very humble about, by the way, because there's tons of people that are looking up to you and what you're doing right now. How cool is that? And what has been maybe even a challenge with it and something that, that's really cool about it.
Yeah, I think, reality is we get into this profession because we love to see players succeed. And I think, having the opportunity to go and recruit and to present this opportunity to players all across the country is awesome. And I love it. I love that I get to see more of the US than most Americans.
Yeah.
I love that I get to talk to players about the game and about how much they love the game. And that's a really cool thing. I really love developing relationships with high school coaches, although I think half the time they enter the phone and they think I'm a telemarketer the first time. But once we break through that barrier, and especially once I can, get on campus and shake their hand, it's a really cool thing to be able to open eyes about women in the game. And I love it when I get to sit down with a high school coach and he says, hey, I have a woman on my staff, or, hey, the pro team in my city is awesome. We have players from there come down and work with our players all the time. So, I love hearing those things, and I love, just sharing, passion to the game. And, for me, I was trying to convince, moms in Australia who'd never seen the sport before that their son should come and play for my team. And, so recruiting, is a little easier now than maybe it was even then.
Yeah.
But it's an awesome experience, and recruiting is a part of the job that I actually really enjoy. I know people I just want to focus on football, but getting out there and meeting players is something that I really enjoy, and I'm really lucky to be able to do.
No doubt about it. Now, as you kind of you've really kicked down the door of the profession, from your vantage point, what's next? What's next for you? Are you trying to continue to kind of fight the good fight like any coach would do, or is it unique? Is it something different? Are you trying to get back to Australia? Like, what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you got to be where you're at. I think big time Absolutely. Is where you're at for sure. I mean, for us, it's about winning an Ivy League championship, and I have an incredible room right now with some really talented quarterbacks who I love dearly, and I love working with them. And, obviously as coach, you always want to be better. And for me, had that experience as a head coach, and loving, being able to be involved in so many different aspects of the program, obviously that's something that, I continue to work towards. And, having had experience at the Jets, being able to, have the opportunity to do my Bill Walsh Fellowship, at Tampa Bay, with Clyde Christensen and Byron Leftwich and Tom Brady, and have that experience in the NFL, that's something I really valued and really enjoyed as well. So, for me, it's about taking the opportunities as they present themselves, as I've tried to do this whole time. You never know, which handshake is going to be a great mentor, which handshake is going to offer you another job, which handshake is going to be someone that changes the way you look at the game. And I think, being able to meet new people and take opportunities as they come along, has landed me where I'm at right now. So I can't say that I've done everything perfectly, but I think, I've really enjoyed the journey so far, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, and there's one unique part that we've been leaving out of the podcast so far, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. I think after we're probably at 300 some episodes on the podcast, I had one coach that might have he was coaching overseas, and they could do a player / coach deal. So he was like a offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach. So he was actively playing. This might have been the only coach I've interviewed that was actively playing, but you are still playing. Is that correct? You're playing currently, or what's going on with you from a playing standpoint?
Yeah, that's right. I'm in my third season with the Boston Renegades. It's an incredible program. I get to back up the Tom Brady of women's quarterbacks and Allison Cahill, who is a phenomenal player who's in her 20th season. She has 7 national championships. I get to punt for the team, which is awesome. Bringing up my Aussie roots there a little bit.
There you go.
And I'm going for my 3rd national championship with the team this year, after an incredible season. And, it's definitely been a challenge to play and coach at the same time. It's been incredibly serendipitous the way that the season has lined up with our spring practices and my recruiting trips. And, I appreciate the patience of the coaches when I have to miss practice to go and be away recruiting or to meet with my players here at Brown. So, it's unbelievably difficult to try and fit 2 playbooks in your brain at the same time. Don't recommend it, but it has been an awesome experience. And I think too, for me, I coached men my whole career. So to be involved in women's football, feels a little bit like I can give back to the game in a way that nobody is able to do for me.
Yeah.
And so it's awesome to be able to share, and but also to invite women into my circle as well. It's great when I can have players from the Renegades come and sit in on meetings at Brown and present on offensive philosophy. And I also get to work with some really great coaches And, again, just hear the game in a different form when I go to practice.
Yeah.
And so it's been really, again, just adding tools to the tool belt. I think, my joke is, my first season in Australia that I got more yards in my first season than Sean McVay got in his whole career. So, I don't think that you have to play to be an excellent coach.
Absolutely.
But it's just another tool in your tool belt. And if you have that opportunity, especially as a woman, when those opportunities are rarer, why not take it and use that as an opportunity to build and to me, be a better coach. Also you have to have some fun at the same time.
No doubt about it. So I definitely do have a follow-up. So I was a special teams coordinator for a while, and I had the rugby punt, and I also had just your typical punt. You've been, like you said, going to your Aussie roots. How do you punt it? Are you straight down the line, or you go ahead and roll out of there?
I probably a little too Aussie for my special team coordinators liking, but I do my best. We do a little bit of both, which is fun. I think he's stopped trying to turn me into a tight spiral punter, and he lets me drop kick it and try and get a good bounce. But we definitely do a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And now you mentioned spouse. You mentioned y'all coach together over in Australia. You turned home base to the United States in what'd you say, 2017. You end up moving here full time. At that point in time, husband's in San Francisco. So now you're full time on the other side of the coast. Have y'all kind of packaged it all together, or what are you guys doing?
Yeah, we actually spent the 4th of July weekend moving all his things back to Providence. He's finishing up his program in San Francisco. He's able to come over and be a support person for me for a little bit longer. And it was definitely a challenge being on opposite sides of the country. People said to him, I can't believe you're going to let her go and do that job. And he said, I'm encouraging it. He's like, this is awesome. And I know I definitely couldn't do what I do without his support. And, like most coaches in this profession, you have to have the support of your spouse. And, they are really the unsung heroes of all of it. They're the people that hear about the good days and hear about the bad days. And, without my husband, and I'm really lucky in that my husband, he'll text. I'll get off the field at the end of a game, and I'll have a text thread of like 25 different things that he's noticing in the game, and his coaching hat gets on really fast when he has an opinion. So it's really fun for me to be able to share that with him. And although these days I think he's like, can we talk about something other than football every now and again? But for him to have such a love of the game, and for him, he shared it with me. He got me involved in this crazy world, and now he's along for the ride, which is really fun. Yeah,
what a fantastic journey! It's great you guys can do it together. Before I let you go here, you snuck in this coming to the AFCA thing in there, and obviously that's who we are. So you made it over to a convention before with us. What was that experience like? Just seeing, I would imagine this is the first time. I know you've been at these forums and you've worked with these staffs and you've dropped in these high schools, but this is probably the first time you've seen a collection of coaches, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 deep. So what was your first experience like at the AFCA convention?
Yeah, I think a little chaotic. I think, for me, it was like every year it's got more fun. Every year you know more people. Every year you can connect with more people. And I think, for me, it was really, the first one's kind of overwhelming. You don't really know what to do with yourself. You spend more time maybe on your own than you'd like.
Yeah.
I spent, but being able to learn from different people and make those connections and build those relationships, for me were crucial. I didn't have a high school head coach that I could call up and say, hey, coach, can I come down and watch practice?
Right.
I didn't have a college coach who was like, could recommend me for a job or, anything like that. So, for me, that was the crucial part, was just meeting people. And even if it was sitting next to someone in one of the clinics, and I think, a lot of the time people don't know where to put me. Oh, are you a trainer? You're a strength coach? You're an athletic director? Like, what's your role? But, you'd see the same people, go to all the quarterback clinics. And then I would have someone come up to me and say, hey, I saw you in the clinic yesterday. You were coach. And we would just be able to organically start that conversation.
Yeah.
It's more fun every year, I think.
That's awesome. Well, I look forward to running into you, spending some time with you at this next one. Hopefully you can make it over to Nashville. But before I let you go, I would love to get you the opportunity to just share your social media. I don't know how much you use it or not, but I know coaches will definitely want to follow up, ask questions, keep up with your journey. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your Twitter account, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, at Coach_Marini.
Easy enough. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes, make it easy for our coaches to kind of click and keep up with you. And once again, thank you so much for your time. It's my honor. Appreciate what you're doing. Number one, for the young people. I mean, it's a people business, and developing young players is awesome. Developing young people to be great human beings is even better. And I definitely appreciate what you're doing. As much as you try to play it off like it was no big deal, I appreciate what you're doing. Just being a trailblazer in this thing, and I love to have a podcast where we don't have to talk about that. We can just talk about ball, and it's going to come at some point, probably not soon enough, but appreciate you taking the steps in that direction.
Appreciate you having me. Yeah, I hope there's so many women out there now that are ready for opportunities, and I hope that you get to talk to them, and eventually it's just old hat.
Absolutely, it's soon enough. All right, thanks so much. Best of luck. See you in Nashville. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcast, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA Convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.